Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. I'm a speech language pathologist turned homeschool mom to two boys, a rising second grader and a rising fourth grader. And in today's video, I'm going to review The Ancient World from Build Your Library Level 1. We used this when my kiddos were first and third graders. And for the most part, we really appreciated and liked this curriculum. Build Your Library, this is kind of a schedule for how you can utilize history, literature, and science. That's what I used it for. There are some more components that I'll talk about here in a moment. So what I'm showing you is actually free on her website for week 1. Everything else I'm not going to show because you have to pay to use it, obviously. But this is kind of the template. We've got our history, we've got our mythology, poetry, literature, science, art, and then some language arts and some math. I'm only going to be speaking about the history component, the poetry component, the literature component, and the science component. The art component, I will tell you, I started it, and guess what? I DNF'd it because it was basically just reading about artists and art methods, and reading about it didn't really spark any interest to me. We've done art study in the past, and that's not really our interest. So I will say we DNF'd the art, and we did not utilize the language arts component, and the math is just for you to like write in what math you're doing. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the top with history. I've actually already done a review on the history curriculum that's used, so you can look. It's gonna be the last video. The history is History Quest. I'm not gonna speak much about History Quest because I've already done an in-depth review on this channel, so you can look at it. It's probably the last video. I loved History Quest. In that video, I'll tell you all about it. But overall, History Quest, I liked that. For Build Your Library, she sets a schedule, like day 1 you do this, day 2 you do this. She splits up the reader very nicely, okay? So this is the reader for History Quest. It has 26 civilizations that it discusses in the ancient world, all the way from 8th century, prehistory, so Paleolithic times, to the 8th century. Another component that Build Your Library recommends for history is A Child Through Time. And this is basically, it tells the story of a child in a certain civilization. For example, if I just turn it, open it up, you see there's a girl right here, and we just learn about what her life would have been like living in the civilization that topic was discussing. So yeah, you don't utilize this for every week for Build Your Library, but there are quite a few civilizations that are in A Child Through Time that correspond to the History Quest civilizations. For history, there are some other like readers that she throws in. For example, Archaeologists Dig for Clues is for week 1, and that is actually a recommendation from the History Quest study guide. So again, if you want to watch that video of a more in-depth on History Quest, I highly recommend it. For mythology, some weeks do have some mythology recommendations. We didn't utilize mythology because we used a Bible curriculum instead. So I can't speak to the mythology component of this curriculum. Now for the poetry I can speak to. The poetry was throughout the year National Geographic Book of Nature Poetry. And I actually had this from the library for like months on end. It just kept renewing. No one else was utilizing it. So yeah, we went through most of this book, not all of it. I mean, poetry can get, for us, a little boring after a while. So we got through most of a giant poetry book, but we honestly, once I had to return it to the library, we didn't utilize it again. But it was beautiful pictures in the nature poetry book. So it was good while we had it. Now for the literature component, I have talked in a different video about listing all the books, if we did them, if we didn't do them. I will say, her schedule for reading for literature is a bit daunting. There is honestly no way that I could have kept up with the pace she sets the chapters at. For example, The Tale of Despereaux, she wants us on day 1 to read chapters 1 through 3. Honestly, that's too much. I do not have the time or even the brain space to sit and read 3 chapters of that book it was probably like a half hour to do so. I am one of those readers that I try to utilize voices and animation in my voice when I'm reading to my children out loud. So I'm not just rushing through the book, for example. I'm taking my time, and I honestly couldn't keep up with the pace that she set for the literature. I will say most of the literature was fantastic. I will in a moment tell you the books that we did read and the books that we didn't read, but I would say we read probably 60 to 70% of the books. But honestly, the pace she has for this curriculum is way too fast, in my opinion, for the literature. Also, in the little PDF that you buy, in the literature, she sometimes has questions to ask after each question. She did for The Tale of Despereaux, and I loved that because I'm all about making sure my kids are, when they read or listen to something, they're having good listening comprehension, they're having good reading comprehension, just part of my speech therapy training. And I loved that she already had some questions like built into her curriculum. But then as we kept going throughout the curriculum, those questions stopped appearing in the curriculum. And I wish that she had kept up the literature questions because I really appreciated those questions. I will say in her curriculum for history, she does have good questions for history to ask throughout the curriculum. So I appreciated that. Okay, so I have the book list of literature on my phone. So I'm gonna go through, tell you if we read it and if it was a hit, okay, or a miss for us. Okay, so for The Tale of Despereaux, yes, we read it, we loved it. For The Golden Bull, we read it and we did appreciate it and we liked it. Egyptian Diary, we did not read. Poppy, we did read and we loved it. For Cappy Boppy, we did not read that one. Charlotte's Web, we loved Charlotte's Web so much. Okay, and then Tales of the Odyssey, we didn't do the Mary Pope Osborne version. We did the Usborne version, and we loved the Odyssey, the children's version, and it's like beautiful animation, or not animation, illustrations. Here was a total DNF for us. We started it, and then all of us, both my boys and myself, we were totally not into this book. It was Aru Shah and the End of Time. And then we read House at Poot Corner. We loved it. We did not read Roman Diary. We did not read Nim's Island. We did not read Zoe and Sassafras. We did read Mulan and we loved it. Okay, moving right along. So we've talked about history, mythology, poetry, literature, and now we're on to my favorite subject, science. So for science, there's like a textbook, there's a beautiful kind of reader, and then throughout the curriculum there's different books she incorporates, illustration books. Like she utilizes a lot of One Small Square books. Sorry, my cat is in the background like freaking out about something. Yeah, she utilizes a lot of One Small Square books and other science readers that are beautiful picture books along the way. And there was another reader I do want to mention. It was more of a literature book. It was called The Tarantula in My Purse and 172 Other Wild Pets. My kids and I absolutely loved this book. And it was more of a literature book. That's what I utilized it as. And in the curriculum, she actually has some pages that you can use to answer questions for the tarantula in my purse book. So I said for science, she had a recommendation for more like a textbook. This is Nature Connection. And I think I've spoken about Nature Connection in the past, but she, again, had a great timeline for you do this page on this day, you do this page on this day. So you go throughout the entire book. This book is a nature study book, obviously. And there's a lot of reading, but then there's also little activities and quests you can do. So it talks about the sky, and it talks about weather, and it talks about sunrise and how light is reflected and refracted, and nighttime, and moons, and the tides of low tide, high tide. It was a textbook, I felt like. And then it goes through every single month. So every single month you get to go out in nature. It asks month appropriate questions for that month. It has you do month appropriate activities throughout the entire year. And I overall thought this got us out in nature. It made us go on nature walks. My boys would take this. We have a nature loop pretty close to us. We would take this with us and we would do the activities in the book. We would be looking for the birds. We'd be looking for the snails. We'd just be following along with whatever they were kind of guiding us towards. So that was like kind of their textbook for this science curriculum. It was nature study. And this was their beautiful, another kind of like textbook, but this was more of the reader. This is called Natural World. And again, it just went through plants, animals, ecosystems. We learned about mimicry and camouflage and migration, but just like beautiful illustrations. And again, what Build Your Library, what she does is she gives you the template for how, like, day to day you read this, day to day you do this. So I really liked this book. It was a beautiful book. If you're doing a nature study, definitely recommend this. Another science book that we utilized throughout the year was called Heroes of the Environment. And this we did like probably every other week. We read a chapter, and it tells of real people doing great things for the environment. It's not a color book. Oh, actually it does have some color. So it does have some color, but it talks about just all types of different people and good they've done around the United States of America specifically. I think there was like some into Mexico as well. Yep, there is the Mexico hero. But yeah, true stories of people who are helping to protect our planet. And again, with this science curriculum that she recommends, she is giving you questions to ask. She's giving you activities to do throughout the curriculum. I can't show you those pages specifically because they're copyrighted under her Build Your Library brand, but I can show you this. So this is kind of the schedule for science. Again, it's just every day you're doing something. And I mentioned earlier that we started the art program, we started the art curriculum, and then we DNF'd it. It was not for us. And then the language arts, she does have copy work and narration cards built into her program, but we already have so much going on with language arts, we didn't utilize that. But that is, if you do buy Build Your Library, it's part of the components. I did not print everything. I used my phone and my iPad usually to look at the questions to ask and the science to ask. So like I said, I had everything kind of on a PDF on my phone or on my iPad. The only thing that I physically printed from this curriculum was the weekly grid. So weeks 1 through 36 was the weekly grids that I printed. That way I could like physically check off. Like I'm a millennial mom, like I do still need some paper pencil tasks to keep me on track. For my final thoughts on Build Your Library, I did really appreciate that this held my hand throughout the school year on what I should be doing for History Quest, what I should be reading for literature, even though I fell way behind on the weeks. And you heard me, I didn't read all of the books just because the pace that she had was way too fast. But other than literature, I stayed consistent with the history and the science and the poetry because it just kept me on track. Like, I was just going every day. We had a little bit to do. And that's the thing about being consistent with any program. If you just keep going little by little, you're gonna get it done in time. But like, if you slack off for a week, you're a week behind, and then you're having to do double time. Like, that's not good for you as the teacher. That's not good for the children that you're teaching either. So if that does happen, just like, don't try to double time it. Just take some books away, take some things off your plate. That way you're not rushing, because school should not feel rushed for your children. Like, if you're feeling rushed, they're feeling rushed. They're gonna pick that up. Trust me, I know from experience, firsthand experience. So yeah, overall, I do recommend utilizing a curriculum like this, just that keeps you in check, that keeps you on pace, that keeps you from never falling behind. I would definitely recommend this. The Ancient World, I found History Quest because of this curriculum, and I'm so happy I did. Like, you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, we're moving on to Middle Times using using History Quest. So if there's anything that I learned from this curriculum, or not learned, if there's anything that I can like say I loved about this curriculum, it was History Quest. I also really liked the science. If there's any recommendations for you guys, is just slow down the literature selections, because I think it's too much. Just slow down, take your time, release that burden of having to read every single book. Take that off of your plate. That would be my biggest recommendation for this curriculum. All right, guys, I think that's all my thoughts on Build Your Library Level 1, The Ancient World. I did really appreciate having my hand held for this school year with this, just like the spreadsheet and the flow of things. I really did appreciate that. Let me know in the comments if you've used this curriculum in the past, what your thoughts are. If you have any questions about this curriculum, I'd be happy to answer them. And with that being said, wherever you are, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thanks for watching. Bye.